Om Stapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupine avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. Sruti smriti purananam alayam karunalayam namami bhagavad padam Shankaram loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashyam Vande Bhagavanto Punah Punah. We are continuing our discussion on the Brahma Sutram, that is Ananda Ashrama. I will continue from where I left in the last session. So we completed the 15th Sutra, Mantra Varnikameva Chagiyate. And then also we started the 16th one, Na Itaraha Anubhavatehi. So that's the splitting. Na Itaraha Anubhavatehi. Anubhavatehi, there is no upapatti, there is no logical ground. It is untenable. So there is no upapatti, so anubhavati. That's hetu. Itaraha here means jiva. This is another reason why Anandamaya is not jiva. This is the essential argument. We will continue now. So Vrittikara is continuing his argument, saying that there is another reason to establish that Anandamaya is Paramatma and not Jivatma. So here Itaraha means something that is Ishvara Bhinna, something that is distinct and different from Ishvara, distinct and different from Paramatma. What is that Itaraha? Jivatma, which is Prapanchika, which is samsari, which is part of the transmigrating phenomena. So this argument continues. Remember, we are still dealing with the dialectical exchange between Vrittikara, who is a Vedantin. Sometimes, it is called Ekadeshi Madam, the view of a school of thought which is not very different from Advaita, but still certainly different from Advaita. As I mentioned earlier, there are two views with regard to who this Vrittikara is. One view, which is more commonly accepted among scholars, is the view that he was Bodhayana. And the work that is referred to is Kritakodi. But you have to remember that book is no more available. It is assumed that Ramanujacharya got a copy of this Bodhayana Vritti, which he brought from Kashmir, and he wrote Sri Bhashyam on the basis of this Vrittikara Madam. So there is a very close similarity between the concept of Ishvara, Paramatma, as mentioned here by Vrittikara, who is the Siddhantin here. Here Siddhantin is not Advaitin, it is Vrittikara. So Shankaracharya will come later. So I will explain today this dialectical multi-layered argument system that is unique to this Anandamaya Adhikaranam. This particular Adhikaranam is well known, is highly celebrated and highly contested because Ramanuja, Madhva, Vallabha, Nimbarka, all four of them, and to some extent in a way, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's system is philosophically a continuation of Madhvacharya's system, so Madhvacharya also included. So they all share in many ways the views of Vrittikara. We'll come to that very soon today. So itascha anandamayaha e para eva atma na itaraha. This is another reason, another logical argument to accept, to view that, to argue that Anandamaya is not Jiva, it is Paramatma. So, Anubhavanna means, because Satyam Jnanam Anandam Brahma. This is the Brahma Vidatnodi Param. Then it goes like Satyam Jnanam Anandam Brahma. This is the subject of discussion. Satyam Jnanam Anandam Brahma. Now, what is this Brahman? What is this absolute reality? Different arguments. One view, according to Jiva Paksha, the school of thought who argues that Anandamaya is Jiva. Then there is another view, Ekadeshi Madam, that is the view of Pratikara, who argues that Anandamaya is not Jiva, it is Paramatma Ishvara. So he continues, Na itaraha Ishvara Anyaka. So Sutrartha is explained. Sutrartham varnide yatra patam sutranusaribhi. So padanija varninde bhashyam bhashyavido viduhu. So Sutrartha is described here as Ishvarat Anyaka itaraha. Samsari jiva ityarthaha. Na jiva anandamaya sabdena abhidiyate. Kasmad anupapattihi. There is no upapatti. Na prakritya sruyate sokamayada bahusyam prajayeya iti. So you have to keep in mind that particular text should be properly remembered if you want to know this portion of it. But as I say, so you find here sokamayada bahusyam prajayeti satapo atapyada sadabastaptva idam sarvamasrijada yadidam kinja tasristva tadeva anupavishat etc. And it continues tadanu pravishyat satchaticha bhavat etc. The whole text is to be taken into consideration. So what does it mean? It means this Atman akamayada, desired, bahusyam prajayeya, may I become many and let me create this world. Then it continues, Saha atapyada sadavastaptua. He brooded over himself and then it projected whatever is idam kinja, whatever is there, having brought this all into existence. This is the Taittiriya Sudhi mentioned here. So kamayada bhagusyam prajayeti sadabhavadepyada sadavastaptua idam sarvamasrijada etc. So this is the context in this particular section. To follow the context, then iti tatra prak shariradi upapattehi abhidhyanam. So kamayada, akamayada, that is abhidhyanam. Abhidhyanam means sankalpa. Bahusyam prajayeya, may I become many, that is sankalpa. Now when did this sankalpa take place? Prak shariradi upapattehi. Utpattehi, prak shariradi utpattehi. Before this srishti began, the first sankalpa, then srishti, and srishti here means nama rupa. What was in avyakta state, it becomes manifest as nama and rupa, that is srishti. And then Sharira, etc., all these things came into existence. So Sankalpa is followed by Srishti, and this Jiva is part of the Srishti. Because Samsari Jiva is equal to Sharira. So here the argument by Vrittikara is that this Sokamayada, this Bahusyam Prajayeya, the Sankalpa took place before the creation of Jiva, Samsari. So Jiva has got a body. That is called Samsari. Birth, life, death and rebirth. This is Samsara. So it is associated with the Sharira, with body. Before Sharira was created, this Sankalpa took place. So that is Abhidhyanam. Srijyamananam cha vikaranam srishtuhu avyatirekah. So remember, what is this view of the Jiva Pakshavadinah? I mean, those who argue that Anandamaya is Jiva. They say that Anandamaya is Sharira. So Anandamaya is this samsari Jiva. So, and that Anandamaya is the absolute reality, Brahma. But actually, that Srishti, Sankalpa, Namarubha, Vidya, all these took place before Sharira came into existence. And Jiva cannot be called Jiva without a Sharira. Jiva is samsari. Without Sharira, you cannot even think of samsara. So that is a very, very simple argument. Abhinna nimittopadana karanam, that is Advaitin's view. So that is why it is called Srijyamananam cha vikaranam srishtuhu avyatirekah. There is no distinction, there is total similarity between Srishti and Srashta. Srishtuhu Srijyamananam avyatirekatvam. There is no distinction between what is created, Srijyamana, and that is which are all vikaras. Because remember, Jiva Pakshavadins take Mayat Pratyaya in Vikarartha. And we will discuss that grammatical, hermeneutical, subtle arguments in the Adhikaranam. That should be understood very clearly. So there is a number of multi-layered dialectical arguments in the Adhikaranam. So right now the exchange is taking place between Jiva Pakshavadinaha and Ekadeshi Madam, that is Vrittikara Paksha. And Vrittikara demolishes Jiva Pakshavadi by saying that yes, this Sharira, which is part of samsari Jiva, it was created only later. So how can that Jivatma can be the creator? Because Jivatma did not exist before this Srishti. So that's why, and another point is Srijyamananam cha vikaranam srishtu avyatirekah. Srishti and Srashta are the same in Advaita Vedanta. Of course, this is accepted by Ekadesi Madam also. This is accepted by Ekadesi Madam. So, therefore, this Srishti is not possible for Jiva. It is possible only for Paramatman. A Jiva cannot do Srishti. Jiva can create certain things which is part of the Vyavaharika Jagat. But Vyavahara Prapancha cannot be created by Jiva. So, Sarva Vikara Srishticha na Parasmat Atmanaha Anyatra Upapaddhiti. The Srishti of this empirical world, this Jagat, cannot take place without the involvement of Paramatma, who is the real Srashta. So all this is an important point, you remember, that is Srijyamananam cha vikaranam srishtuhu avyatirekah. So, for example, Rajju and then Sarpa. The Sarpa is not distinct from Rajju. There is a Rajju lying there, that's why you got a wrong notion, there is a Sarpa. You remove the Rajju, there is no Sarpa. Sarpa means only Pradibhasika, only in your mind, it's a conceptual reality. So, if you remove Rajju, then no one will imagine there is a Sarpa. And if you remove Rajadam, then if you remove Shuktika, then you won't see any Rajadam there. These are Avyatirekatvam. So that is now next, that is 17th Sutra. Bheda Vyapadeshacha. So this is a very important point. It's a very important point. Bheda Vyapadeshacha. So here there are two things here. One is Jiva, the other is Brahman. Bhashyam will make an argument here to the end of this sentence. Idascha Anandamaya Samsari. Yasmat Anandamaya Adhigare Param Raso Vai Sah Rasam Khevayam Laddu Anandi Bhavadi Idi Jivananda Mayu Bhedena Vabhidishyadi Nahi Labdhaiva Labdhavyo Bhavadi. So another argument again put forward by Vrittigara to demolish the Jiva Paksha, mean the school of philosophy which argues that Anandamaya is Jiva. So Vrittigara is putting forward another argument. One is the argument is this, that is Anandamaya is not Jiva. Here there is one important point mentioned, one becomes Anandi, he gets bliss or he becomes blissful only when he receives Ananda. And what is Ananda here? Ananda here is Paramatma. That is Anandamaya. And that Anandamaya has abundance of Anandam. That is Rasa. So, and then he says, Idi Jivanandamayo Bhedena Vibhidishadi Nahi Labdha Eva Labdhavyo Bhavadi. Labdha here means somebody who is receiving the Jiva, the embodied, the receiver, samsari. He becomes Anandi, he gets Ananda. He receives bliss, Ananda from whom? From somebody who is giving it. Brahman or Paramatma, Upasya, that is the one who gives. That is Rasa. So Rasa here means the Paramatma or the essence of the Ananda. And that is Labdhavya, that is something to be received, something to be got, something you have attained. The one who wants to attain something and what he wants to attain cannot be the same. When you are looking for something, when you want to attain, what you are trying to attain is Labdhavya. And you yourself are Labdha. They cannot be the same. The very fact that you are getting Rasa, Anandi Bhavadi, you are getting Ananda. So who is becoming Anandi? Jiva. So that Jiva cannot be Anandamaya. The Anandamaya should be the receiver. So Brahman, when Vrittigara uses the word Brahman, don't mistake that Brahman to be the Brahman of Advaitins. When Vrittigara uses the word Anandamaya is Brahman, Ishvara, Paramatma, etc. We have to keep in mind, Vrittigara is implying that it is one source of bliss. Ramanuja's Sagala Kalyana Nithi. So that should be kept in mind. That is why Maya Pratyaya was interpreted in Prachuryartha by Ramanuja, Madhva, Vallabha, Nimbarka, all of them. So your Ishvara is Saguna Sagara Savishesha Brahman, who has got a form, who has got a lot of attributes. He is an abundance of prachuryam, of bliss. So in Anandamaya expression, the Maya Pratyaya was interpreted by Jivapaksha in Vikarartha. But Vrittigara changes this hermeneutical reinterpretation that Maya Pratyaya should be taken in Prachuryartha. So when you do Upasana, as you are a Jiva, you are Labdha, you are going to be the receiver of this bliss. Then what happens? You get this Ananda. So that's why he mentioned, Raso Vai Saha. Rasa, that Paramatma, Vai Saha. Saha means Anandamaya. Anandamaya is Paramatma. Rasam hi evaya labdhva anandi bhavati. Ayam here means what is ayam? Ayam is Jivatma. Ayam rasam labdhva anandi bhavati. Ayam jivatma rasam labdhva anandi bhavati. So, this is a very important point. Let's keep in mind. Idi jivanandamayo vibhedena vibhedishyati. So, our Taittiriya Shruti makes it very clear that is a great distinction between Jiva and Anandamaya. Jiva is labdha. Anandamaya is labdhavya. That is bhedena vibhedishyati. Means there is a bheda Shruti, the Shruti Vakya. Nahi labdhaiva labdhavyo bhavati. Now here Purvapakshin comes forward with an important argument. That is a direct attack on both Vrittigara Madam and also Advaita. What he says, Katham tarhi Atma Anveshtavyah Atmanna Param Labhyade Vidyade iti Srismudi Yavada na Labdhaiva Labdhabhyo Bhavati Ityuktam. So you argue that there is a clear distinction between Labdha and Labdhavya, Jiva and Paramatma. But then, in your own in the Vedic literature, it is mentioned Atma Anveshtavyaha. Atma is to be sought after. You should do upasana. You should. This is of course Atma and Mantavyo, Sodavyo, etc. All these are important Sruti statements here. So what about this? If you take this Sruti statement, then it means you are to seek, you are to attain Atma. So Atma labhat na param vidyate. There is nothing greater than Atma labha, than attainment of Atma. The actual meaning is, remember, Advaita's argument is this. When you are trying to attain Atma, it is meant for those who are in a state of avidya, who thinks that Atman is something distinct and different from our own Swarupa. That's why Shruti tells you should attain Atma. Because so long as you are in avidya state, there is a clear distinction between Shastram, Shasta, and everything, the Tribhuti exists there. Dhyanam, Dhyada, Dhyayavastu. Jnanam, Jnada, Jnayavastu. These distinctions are there so long as we are in a state of avidya state. What is avidya state? The state in which we are not aware of our own Atman identity. So, for those seekers, Shruti will tell you, Atma Nishtavyaha, Atma Labhadna Param Vidyate, etc. So, this is the argument, this Advaita's argument, and actually this argument is also put forward with Vrittigara. So, Vrittigara Madam is in many ways it comes very close to Advaita. Shankaracharya in the 19th Sutra, he comes and gives a small corrective application, and then Vrittigara Mata becomes Advaita. So there is before that Bhashyam makes the background for this complicated multi-layered argument. One Purvapaksha, then the Purvapaksha is corrected, then another Purvapaksha, it comes one after another. It's called Utsutra Bhashyam. Utsutra means something that goes beyond Badarayana Sutra structure. The Utsutra Bhashyam was a charge put forward against Bhashyakara. It comes very explicit in the Sudarsana Suris, the Sudha Prakashika, and Vedanta Desika's Shadadushani, and also in the Madhva system in Vyasatirtha's Nyayamrita. So that Sutra should be understood. Here, Bhashyakara, in some ways, he appears to correct even Badarayana. And there is a pramana for that. Badarayana Sutras are not entirely self-explicit. So to give a logical interpretation to Badarayana Sutras, sometimes we have to go a little beyond Badarayana and we have to depend upon Sudhi. It is very well accepted. In the Bhamadi you find Vajaspati gives a long defense of both the grammatical, hermeneutical changes that Bhashyakara brings in, and also in defending the Utsutra Bhashya. That will come to later, slowly. When we come to the 19th Sutra, you understand that. Today, that's why we need at least 1.5 hours minimum we need, then only we can do justice, because frequently, I will be away, again I am traveling from 2-3 days later, I will be back only. So your next class will be, I think, on 17th May. So whenever we get time, we will do as much as possible. And going forward after 17th, when I come back again, we will discuss with you. Whenever we are not in a position to continue every Sunday morning for you, Saturday evening for us, then we will arrange some classes in between, so that whenever it's convenient to me, I can hold the class at the same time, so that we will have a continuous succession without any break, at least one class minimum every week. So please listen to this, it's very important. You have to read the text again after I have completed, then only you will understand this. This is a multi-layered dialectical arguments that you find in the Anandadhyaranam. Okay, coming back to the subject now. Katham tarhi atma anveshtavyaha atmalabha na param vidyate iti sudhismriti. Then what about this sudhismriti, etc.? All the statement. Both are implicated. Yavada na labdhaiva labdhavyo bhavati ityuktam. You said just now that labdha and labdhavya cannot be the same. They are the same. But then what about the Sudhi statements that Atma is to be attained, Atma is to be investigated into. There is nothing greater than the attainment of Atman. So that means, that makes it very clear that there is a clear distinction between Labdha, the seeker, and what he is seeking. Badham, okay, that's true. Pratigara replies. Tathapi, so this is Siddhanta. Siddhanta means Pratigara's reply to Purvapakshi. Purvapakshi is Jiva Akshama. So argue that Anandayama is Jiva. Tathapi Atmanaha aprachyudatma bhavasya iva. Aprachyuda means what? No chuti. What is the Atma? Atma is aprachyuda svabhava. That is, by its very nature, Atman is without any change, but it is instinctively, inherently, Atma is aprachyuda svabhava. Tathapi Atmanohu aprachyuda svabhavasya. Here Shashti continues, Shashti Vibhakti, no Vishesha continues. Seva Sataha Tattva Anavabodha Nimittaha Mithaiva Degadishu Anatmasu Atmatva Nischaya. That's it. That's Atma Nischaya. What is the Atmatva Nischaya? Dehadishu Anatmasu. What is Anatma? Deha, Mana, Buddhi, Sharira, etc. All these are Anatmas. So, Dehadishu Anatmasu Atmanisheha. We mistake what is Anatman as Atman. And that is Mithya. So, for whom these Sudhi statements are meant, Atma Anveshtavyaha, Atma Labhatna Param Vidyate, etc., for those who are not aware of the aprachyuda svabhava of Atman. Aprachyuda svabhava. Atma has no chuti, no change. Those who are not aware of this, that is, those who tat atmanaha aprachita subhavaseva sataha tattva anubodha nimittaha. So those who have no awareness, na bodha. What bodha? That is the bodha that labdha labdhavya are the same. That bodha is totally absent for those who impose atmatva buddhi in anatman. What is anatman here? Deha, that is sharira, mana, buddhi, ahangara, etc. We all assume that when at different levels we think, well, I was hurt, I am hungry, I am thirsty. You mean, well, I am hurt here. I mean, you have a small cut on your finger, on your hand. So you assume you are the body. When you say you are angry, you maybe your mind, you are implying your mind. Sometimes buddhi, I am bored by reading a book or listening to this dry lecture, you make it because you interpreting yourself to be your buddhi. So at different levels, we superimpose anatman in atman, or we mistake what is non-atman as atman. That's why tathapi atmanaha aprachita subhavasyeva sataha tattva anavabodha nimittaha mithyaiva. That because of mithya, because of misunderstanding, the people frequently they think that the sharira, mana, buddhi, etc., which are all anatma, that is atma. Because of this misunderstanding. What is misunderstanding? Mentioned here. Sataha tattva anubodha means absence of proper understanding of the true nature of sat. What is the sat? The sat is paramartha satta. What is that? Aprachita sabhava, atma. That atma which has no change. Body, mind, everything changes. So when we impose sarira buddhi on atman, then we will start thinking that atma also changes, like sarira. This is the result. That is mithaiva. Dehadishu, anatmasu, atmata nischaya, laukiko. Laukika means that's what we see in this world. That's in the Adhyasa Bhashya, in the Samadhana to Shankara Grantha, you find a Samadhana Grantha. That is the definition of mithya is mentioned there, more or less to some extent similar. Laukiko dishta, that's what we see in this world. Tena dehadi bhudasya atmanaha api atma ananishtavyya. So remember, tena, because of this misunderstanding, what happens, dehadi bhudasya atmanaha api atma. So then what happens is we misunderstand. Actually, it is ananyushtaka. What happens? The atma which cannot be sought after, because our own true nature, we consider this as ananyushtavya. Again, what is alabdha, not something to be attained, we interpret it is something to be attained. Alabdhaha, labdhavyaha, etc. Sodavyaha, asutaha, sodavyaha. Atman cannot be heard. It is beyond any empirical perception. So, Atman cannot be investigated into, it cannot be inquired into, because it's our own true nature. We cannot really go in search of our own true nature, because we are going in search of ourselves. So, we cannot do that. So, then what happens, because of this misunderstanding, because of this anatmasu atmatva buddhi, atmatva nischaya, what we think is, what we do is that something that cannot be attained, we think it is something to be attained. What is alabdha, what cannot be attained, we think it is something to be attained. What is asruda, something that we cannot read about, vacha magocharam. Panja shabda pravati nishedhaka. All these are different arguments. Atman cannot be explained, is beyond the five verbalization, Jati, Guna, Sambandha, Kriya, etc. So, and it didn't Vachama Gocharam. So it is Asruda. Still we think it is Srotavya. Amadaka, Mantavya. It is something that we can understand through Maranam, but we mistake. We cannot be understood through Maranam. It is beyond that. No, Achama Gocharam. So, Yato Vacho Nivartante. Mind and words go in search of this truth, but they cannot understand and they return without a proper understanding. Avijñāta vijñātavya ityādi bheda vyapadesha udishyati. All these bheda sudhi, that is, Atma is something like vijñātavya, something to be understood, something to be understood through intellect, something, it is labdhavya, it is srodhavya, it is mantavya. All these wrong notions are for whom? For this called bheda sudhi are meant for those who are sataka tattva anavabodha nimittaha, and also those who are, aprachyuta subhavasya atmanaka, those who are not aware of the aprachyuta subhava of Atman. For those people, you tell you, well, Atma should be understood. For people who are very, very gross-minded, if you tell them that you and the God you are searching for are the same, they go crazy. For a normal person who are very gross-minded, very sthula buddhi, for them first you should tell them you should do some good karma. Shankara himself says, karma nisthayaka chitta shuddhi dvarena pushartha hedutvam na swatantrena jnana nisthadu swatantrena pushartha heduhu anyana apeksha. Those who believe, or those who are under the wrong notion that Atman, or may say in the monotheistic sense, God is not different from yourself, people will misunderstand. I am God, actually. I am this Sharira Buddhi. That's what happened to Shwetaketu. When the first Upadesha came, he said, Bhuyeva Mam Vijñāpayidu. Please teach me again, because he didn't understand it. The real Sravana takes place only to the end of the Tattvamasi Mahavakya Prakarana, not at the beginning. That's why he wanted his father to repeat the same instruction again and again. So, Bheda Sudhi is always meant for those who are still slowly evolving. For them, Atma is Annishtavyaha, Atma is Sodavyaha, Atma is Mantavyaha, Atma is Vijñādavyaha, etc. Not for those who are more evolved. Ityādi Bheda Vibhadesa Upapadyate. Pratisiddhiti evatu Paramarthatha Sarvajñāt Parameshwara Danyo Drashta Srodava Nanyo Adosti Drashta Nanyo Adosti, etc. This is a Pradhanika Sudhi is there. So remember one thing. So all these Bheda Sudhi is perfectly okay. Upapadyate. There is Upapatti for that. Because they are those who are not understood that Atma is their own Suswarupa. Those who do not understand that Atman is their own Suswarupa, for them Atma is Pratavya, Srotavya, etc., Annishtavya, etc., Mantavya, etc. But actually, in reality, there is no drashta, no sroda, apart from this Parameshwara, that is Paramatma, Atma Brahman. That argument of the Vrittikara is very well acceptable to Advaitis. The only point you have to remember, as you understand slowly, Vrittikara takes the whole argument very close to Advaita. But then there is a discussion towards the end whether, and that's about Brahma Bhashyam Pradishtha, where Brahman is Swatantra or Aswatantra. The final Mahasiddhanta, according to this Prakaranam, is in Brahma Bhashyam Pradishtha, Brahman is Swatantra, Supradhana. That's the argument. So before going further, I think it's better that I will take you through these multi-layered arguments of the Ananda Adhikaranam. Otherwise, it's difficult for you to understand. So first, stage by stage, you have to look, you have to listen very carefully. What is the text? Brahmananda Valli, 5th Anuvaga, that is the Shastra Vakyam here. And more importantly, after discussing Annamayam, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, to the end of the Sudhi, it comes Tasmadva Edasmad Vijnanamayat Anyo Antara Atma Anandamaya. This is a Sudhi statement. Before that, Tasmadva Edasmad Vijnanamayat Anyo Antara Atma Anandamaya Tenesha Purnagas Savesha Purushavita Eva Tasya Purushavidatam, etc. Tasya Priyameva Siddhaka. All these are discussion, will come for discussion. If Anandamaya has got head, Tasya Priyameva Siddhaka. Modo Dekshina Pakshaka, Pramodo Uttara Pakshaka, Ananda Atma Brahma Bhashyam Pradishtha. That is the Adhikarana Vakyam of this Adhikarana. So, this should be kept in mind. Now, in this Bhashyam, you find different levels of this dialectical argument. First, Jiva Paksha says Anandamaya is Brahman. Here Brahman here means the absolute reality in that sense. And against this Siddhantin, that is Vrittigara, who is opposing Jiva Pakshavadi. He says, no, Anandamaya is not Brahman. Paramatma or Ishvara is Brahman. That is, again as I mentioned earlier, that is the view of Ramanuja, Madhva, Vallabha, Nimbarka. I don't say they took everything from Vrittigara. But one important reason why we believe that Ramanuja himself mentioned Vrittigara Madam is it should be Kritagodi of Bodhayana. Now, the arguments in favor of the Purvapaksha, that is Anandamaya is Brahman, the argument. One is Pravaha Paditatva Nyayaka. What is Pravaha Paditatvam? It comes in the Bhashya. Pravaha means the flow. So you find first Anandamaya, Anya Antaratma, that is Pranamaya, Tasya Anyaha Antaratma Vijnanamaya, Manomayaka. Again beyond Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and then Vijnanamaya, beyond Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya. So, there is it comes in the same context. So, according to Vaidika Vyakarana view, the meaning of a Veda mantra should be understood in the context, according to the context, and also according to the person who uses that word. So, Pravaktuhu and Prakaranasya. Prakarana Bheda and Pravaktu Bheda. Prakarana means context. So, in the context of all these four koshas, Anandamaya also comes, the fifth one. It should be naturally the same. We cannot say Anandamaya is something different from other kosha because it comes the one single block of 5 koshas. So we actually, you already mentioned earlier, Vrittigara will change the meaning of Maya Pratyaya from Vikarartha to Prajatyartha. That will come later. So the argument in favor of Jiva Pakshavada is, one is Pravaha Paditatva Nyayaka. That is, it comes in the same flow, in the same context of Pravaha, the same context. And then, another point is this, Arundhati Pradasana Nyaya. First, your attention is drawn to Annamaya, then Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya. Just like you want to show somebody Arundhati Nakshatra, first you show him a big star, then to something that is smaller, like that. So you begin with Annamaya, you end with Anandamaya. So that is another argument in favor of the Jiva Pakshavadi. So here these are arguments not from Vrittikara but from Jiva Pakshavadi. Those who argue that Anandamaya is Jiva, Samsari, etc. Another argument already mentioned, Musha Nishikta Druda Tamradi Pratimavat means. If you create a mold and then you put inside, again something inside, the innermost stage here is Anandamaya. So these are different arguments. So one is Pravaha Padidatva Nyayaha. And of course there is also there, Tasya Priyameva Siraga, etc. Modu Dakshina Paksha, all these Avayava is there. So in samsari only. Again, Adundadi Pradasana Nyayaha and Musha Nishikta Druda Tamadi Pradimavata, etc. Now, later you find Vrittikara says there is a distinction between the implication of Mayat Pratyaya with regard to the other four koshas and also with regard to Anandamaya. So Vrittikara says Anandamaya is Prajuryartha. So in fact later you find Bhashyakara, Shankaracharya says that itself is actually wrong. So he uses the word Ardha Jarati Nyayaka. You have to listen to this again, then we understand. Ardha Jarati Nyaya means a woman, half, she is very old, 90-year-old. The other half is a young person. It is actually a paradox. It is impossible. So Bhashyakara will tell you later, he is addressing Vrittikara. When Bhashyakara demolishes Vrittikara Madam, he argues that you cannot say all the four koshas should be interpreted in Vigarartha, Maya Pratyaya, because these are all Vigaras, modifications of Ananda. Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya. And only in Anandamaya it is Prajuryartha. That is wrong. It is like saying a person is one part, half the part is very old, other part is very young. It is impossible. So these are some of the arguments that he put forward, and so he used the Ardha, that is Ardha Jarati Nyaya, etc. And then Bhashyakara will go forward, he will tell you that the last Mahasiddhanta of this Prakaranam is Brahman is supreme, Brahma Pucham Pradishtha. There is also argument against that. They will tell you that Brahman is secondary. So it is only one part of Anandamaya. Bhashyakara will tell you that Brahman is not secondary, Brahman is Supradhanam, it is primary. This is how the argument forwards one after another. So you can find Purvapaksha against that Vrittikara's response, and then Vrittikara's own attempt to change the grammatical hermeneutics. He brings a new idea, that is Prajur, which is of course perfectly agreeable to Panini. So this is the point to be kept in mind. Now that means there are Purvapaksha, Siddhanta, then Purvapaksha Prakasha, and then gradually it changed the meaning of the pratyaya used in Anandamaya. So this we kept in mind, and then finally you have to keep in mind that the real argument in favor of Advaita, where Bhashyakara himself steps in, that begins only with the 19th Sutra, Asminnasya ja tadyogam shasti. There is only he uses Ardha Jarati Nyaya. Now we have to keep in mind something else here. This is a very important thing. That is, in the Anandamaya Adhikaranam, if you got a book with you, you can change it. You can just keep the beginning of the text called Sutra Bhashyam. It should be kept Sutra. You already discussed earlier, Uchyade, Dirubam, Hi Brahma Avagamyade, etc. This should be kept in mind to understand the correct stature of this Adhikaranam. Technically, it is called Uksutra. Here means something that leaps over, that goes beyond. And those who are opposed to Advaitins will tell you, especially Vedanta Desika in Shatadoshani and Ananda Suri in Sudaprakashika and Vyasatirtha also, and other Madhva dialecticians also will tell you that Bhashyakara is going beyond the scope of Badarayana's original implication of the Sutra. So that's why that is called Utsutra. Leaping over the Sutra itself, that's the idea behind. So, of course, remember, this is not really found in the, not explicitly found in the Sri Bhashya, but it is found in the commentary works of this Ramanuja tradition. And also you find in the Tarkatandava and other dialectical works of Madhva tradition also you find. Now, coming to the grammatical hermeneutics, meaning of Maya Pratyaya, you have to keep in mind it is perfectly in agreement with Panini's system. Now, one important point to keep in mind is Bhamadikara, he puts forward a very, very famous statement which normally is taught when you study this in traditional school. Why Anandamaya is not Brahman? Anandamaya is called Tasmaya Vijnanat Anyaha Antaraha, mentioned here. So, it is subtler than Vijnanamaya and is so distinct from Vijnanamaya. So that clear distinction is made by Vrittikara. Now that is often criticized by non-Advaitins. That's one point of argument between the Sri Bhashya tradition, Ramanuja and Madhva tradition, because they do not agree with this view, that is Shankaracharya's refutation of Prachuryarthavada. So remember, Vrittikara, Ramanuja, Madhva, Vallabha, Nimbarka all joined together in changing the meaning of Maya Pratyaya from Vikarartha to Prachuryartha. Ramanuja Ishvara is full of bliss. Bhashyakara's argument is, suppose you are full of bliss, there should be some, it means majority of bliss. There is always the possibility of little bit of dukkha. If you are full of ananda, then there is always the possibility there will be a little bit of dukkha. Remember that. So if you say this person is very great, very strong, it always leaves the possibility there will be somebody who is stronger than you. So Bhamadikara says, Nahi Devadattaha Balavan Ityukte Sarvan Simha Sharduladi Napi Prati Balavan Pradiyadi Api Tu Samana Jatiya Narandaram Apekshya, etc. Before that, Bhamadikara says, Nacha Asmat Anyasya Andarasya Asravanat Ayameva Sarvandara Sudi Sarvandara Idi Yuktam. What is the meaning here? You find the Sruti, the Taittiriya Sruti tells you that there is something Anya and Antara beyond Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya. Remember that? Pranamaya is Anya and Antara compared to Annamaya. And Manomaya is Anya Andhara according to Pranamaya. And Vijnanamaya is Anyaha and Andhara. This is subtler and distinct from Manomaya. But there, Again, Vijnanamaya, Anyega, Andhra is Anandamaya. But it is not mentioned that there is anything beyond Anandamaya. Anandamaya ends there. So that's why Vrittikara's Bhashya ends with that. There only Shankaracharya enters the scene. That is 19th Sutra. Nacha asmat anyasya andrasya asravanad. There is no Sudhi statement. Asmat means Anandamayad. Anandamayad, anyasya andrasya asravanad. It's not mentioned anything beyond, anything subtler, something distinct from Anandamaya. Ayameva sarvantara iti yuktam. Therefore, Vrittikara tells you that this is sarvantara. But it is not clearly mentioned here. It is not mentioned there. It is only an anumana. Obviously, but it's not mentioned. So, Bhavadigara says, Nahi Devadattaha Balavan ityukte. Suppose you say, Devadatta is strong, you say. Devadattaha Balavan ityukte. Sarvan Simka Sharduladinapi Pratibalavan Pratiyadinapi. It doesn't mean that he is stronger than the lion. Suppose you say your neighbor, your friend is very strong. It doesn't mean that he is stronger than an elephant. He is stronger than, maybe in one family, one brother may be stronger than other brothers. But he cannot, he is the strongest in the world. So that's the argument that. So Bhamadikara is defending Shankaracharya's view that the real absolute reality should be something other than Anandamaya. That's how he brings in Brahma Bhashyam Pradishta. Follow the point? That's the point. Because Vrittikara Madam ends with Anandamaya. So Bhamadikara says, Nahi Devadattaha Balavan ityukte Sarvan Simha Sharduladinapi Prati Balavan Pratiyadapi Tu Samana Jatiya Narandram Abheksha. He is strong, Devadatta is strong only when compared to Somadatta or some other people. He is not strong when compared to lions and tigers. No, cannot be. Evam Anandamaya api Annamayadibhika antaraka nadu sarvasmat antaraka. Similarly, Anandamaya certainly is antaraka and anyaka in relation to Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manamaya, Vijnanamaya, etc. But not Sarvasmat Antaraka. It is not supreme. Therefore, and but who is supreme? That is to be something other than Anandamaya. What is that? That is Brahman. Brahma Bhashyam Pradishta comes there. That's how Brahma Bhashyam Pradishta is introduced here. Now, in order to create background for all these, Bhashyakara begins his Sutra. That's why very important. That is the real, that should be understood very clearly to know the actual implication of Anandamaya. Chadusutri concluded, Sattu concluded that the Talparya of all the Sudhi Vakya, Vedanta Vakyas is Brahman. Clear. A Jagat Karanam Ishvara. Clear, understood. In the Ishatyadhikaranam, it was clearly established that Jagat Karanam cannot be Pradhanam. It should be Ishvara. That is Vaimani, Bhudani, Jayanti, Shastra, Yonitva, etc. So, Brahman, Saguna Brahman is Jagat Karanam, established here. Now, what is that Jagat? What is that Brahman? So, what is the true nature of the Brahman? That should be made clear. For that, Bhashyakara begins this Utsutra Bhashyam. It begins like this. Uchyade dirubam hi brahma avagamyade nama rupa vikara vedubadi visishtam tad viparidam cha sarvobadi vivarjidam yatrahi deva, etc. That's a long bhashya continues. That is called a prologue. That is one. That is Nirubadhika Brahman is Nyeya. Swabhadhika Brahma is Upasya. And Jagat Srishtutvam, all these are in connection with the Swabhadhika. The Nirubadhika Brahma is different. The problem is Vrittikara, Ramanuja, Madhva, all of this end with Sobadhika Brahman. So it's perfectly okay to argue that Anandamaya is Sobadhika Brahman by Prachuryam. The problem is, Prachuryam implies a remote possibility of little bit of the opposite of bliss. If you say you are very strong, then there is always a possibility of some weakness. If there is a lot of happiness, there is always a possibility of a little bit of a mustard seed of unhappiness. That cannot be attributed to Brahman. Brahman should be beyond both. Brahman should be beyond all ubadhis. Nirguna, Niragara, Nirvishesha. That's why Brahma Bhashyam Pradishtha is brought here. Even afterwards, there is a Purvapaksha, whether Brahman is Swatantra or just part of Puja. This is Brahman is Swatantra. So this is an important point to remember. Again, equally important is this hermeneutical interpretation. Okay, so that is there are two important sutras to be kept in mind. One is Mayadva etayohu bhashayam abhakshya achadanayohu. Here also Vigarartha can come. The other one, this is, I think, this is fourth dhyaya, third pada or something. The other one is Tat Prakrita Vachani Mayat. That is another sutra. That is fifth adhyaya. Here there is a scope for Prachuryartha. That is Prachuryena Prastudam Prakritam Prachuryartha. That is Prachurya means abundance. That is the argument of Vrittigara and of course Ramanuja and others. So example is given in the Bhashyam, in the commentaries itself. Nyaya Nirnaya and Ratnaprabha, this you find, Bhamadi you find. Jalamayo Grama. See, suppose here Maya Pratyaya is Prachuryartha. A village which has plenty of water. But it doesn't mean it has only water. It doesn't have 1 inch of land, you cannot say. By and large, it is dominated by predominantly a water, a place full of water. Annamayo Yajnaha, a sacrifice, a Vedic ritual, in which the most important ingredient is food. But it presupposes other constituents also. Like for example, ghee is needed. In Annamayo Yajna, mantra is required, ghee is required, dadhi is required, rituals are important. So, Prachuryartha has got one problem. It leaves the possibility of little bit of its opposite. Jalamayo Grama means there should be some tree somewhere where there is no water. So if you consider Ishvara, a Brahman, the absolute reality, which is abundance of bliss, you are leaving the possibility of somewhere something which is not so blissful. So that will make that Brahman imperfect, incomplete. Apupamayam means here, which is it cake, some purodasha they made with with rice flour. Fortunately, wheat was perhaps not used. Maybe in some places. So here also, yajna, certain things are required. So the point is, Anandamaya Brahman in whom Ananda dominates, but it's not Niradishaya. There is a possibility of little bit of dukkha also. And that will make that Brahman imperfect in that sense. Therefore, Prachuryartha has got a lot to be desired. It is not complete. That's the idea behind. So, you have to keep that sutra in mind, the 13th sutra. Vikara Sabdat na iti ched na prachuryad. This is the important sutra for Vrittigara. It is not vikara, it is prachuryartha. Now you get an idea of where Bhashyakara begins and where Vrittikara ends. And by extension of the interpretation, where Ramanuja ends and where Advaita begins, where Vishishtadvaita ends and Advaita begins. So Advaita accommodates Vishishtadvaita. And in some ways, except Pancha Veda Siddhanta, except that, it also accommodates little bit of Dvaita also. But certainly, Advaita fully accommodates Vishishtadvaita. Just like Bhashyakara fully accommodates Vrittikara Matam. But he extends he continues to interpret it far beyond. So the Mahasiddhanta is this, that is, Brahman is Swatantra, Brahman is the foundation. Pucham here means not Avayava, Pucham here means Asraya. That's the idea. Brahman is the Asraya, Brahma Pucham Pradishtha. That's the idea. Brahman is Swatantra. Brahman is the Asraya, Adhisthana of Anandamaya. Not an Avayava, but Asraya. If you take the tail, Pucham has got a meaning tail. Should not be taken that way. It means Asraya, Adhisthana, etc. This is a point to be kept in mind. Now we will come back to Bhashya. It will be clear to you. You can listen to it again, and otherwise you can try in course of time, So, Kalam, what do you say? Sesham, Kalakramena, So like that it comes, okay. Now coming to the Bhashya proper. So now here there is another very important portion here. We are continuing Veda Vyapateshacha. Parameshwarastu avidya kalpida sharirat kartu bhoktu vijnanatmakhyat anyaha yatha maya vinaha charma khadga dharat Sutrena Akasham Adhirokataha Sa eva Mayavi Paramartharupaka Bhumishto Anyaha Yathava Ghadagashat Ubadhiparichinnat Anubadhiparichinna Akashaka Anyaha Idrisham Cha Vijnanatma Paramatma Vedamasitya Naidaro Nubhavtehi Veda Vipadeshacha Ityuktam. So we continue that now. Okay. Now, Parameshwarastu. Parameshwara means Paramatma. Avidya kalpidad sharirad kartu bhoktu vijnanatmakhyad. So, avidya kalpidad, what's that is this you call the Atman Anandamaya as Vijnana, Vijnanatma, etc. That you call that absolute reality as karta, bhokta, etc. It has got a bodily entity, etc. You consider it karta, bhokta, and then it has got a name, vijnanam, vijnanamaya. So when you talk about this, for example, that because of ignorance, what is beyond kartrutva bhoktrutva, the Atman, Brahman, which is akarta and abhokta, is wrongly interpreted to be karta and bhokta due to ignorance. Now, that absolute reality which is misinterpreted to be karta, bhokta, vijnana, maya, etc., it is distinct from all these, the absolute reality distinct from all these, distinct from Atma, misunderstood or misinterpreted to be karta, bhokta, etc. An example is given here. That is that Indian rope trick. Yatha Mayavinaha Charma Khadga Dharad Sutrena Agasham Adhirokataha Sa eva Mayavi Paramartha Rupaha Bhumishtoha Anyaha. So this you find in a much more elaborate manner in the Mandukya Bhashya. Slightly longer, the same idea is put forward there. That is when Srishti is created. Srishti is explained. Vibhudi Vistara Ishwarasya Srishtiridi Srishti Chinda Manyante. Nadu Paramartha Chindaganam Srishto Adara Ityartha. Indro Mayavi Puraruva Iyati. It is Sutehi. That is in Brihanika. Nahi Mayavinam Sutram Akashe Nikshipya Tena Saidham Aruhya Chashuggojaradam Atitya Yudhena Khandasa Chinnam Padidam Punaruthidam Cha Pashyadam Tatkrita Mayadi Sadattu Chindaya Madhuro Bhavati. So what it means? So this Srishti itself is compared to this Indian rope trick. And those who are serious students, they are not interested in this Maya, they are interested only in Mayavi. Mayavi is the Paramartha Satta, not Karta and Bhokta, not Vijnanatma, but the real absolute reality, Brahman. That is real Mayavi. That Mayavi is distinct and different from Maya. What is Maya? Maya is explained here. Nahi Mayavinam Sutram Akashe Nikshipya Tena Saidham Aruhya Chakshugojaram Atitya Yudhena Khandasa Chinnam Padidam Punaruthidam. So a magician comes, throws a rope to the sky, and he proclaimed there is a war going to happen in maybe Devaloka or somewhere, and there is a big army of Rakshasas attacking Surga. It's a big problem. He gets an SOS, so he goes there. And there is a big fighting takes place. So he can clash of swords, and then suddenly he finds there's a lot of dead bodies falling all over the place. This happens in a king's court. This is Maya actually. This is Jagat. This is Srishti. And then Tathaivaya Mayavinaga Sutra Prasarana Samaka Susupta Supnadi Vikasaka. Of course, we are not interested in this. This is a Mandukya Prakriya, Jagra Supna Susupti. I am not going to that. If you ask question, you can ask question later. Sutra Tararudabhyam Anyaha Paramartha Mayavi. That's an important point, important Brahma Sutra Bhashya. Sutra Tadarudhabhyam Anyaha Paramartha Mayavi. The real Mayavi magician is distinct and different from the thread that he appears to be throwing to the sky, and then he is riding a horse and goes up to heaven. The real Mayavi is distinct and different from this. The other Mayavi is Karta Bhokta. Vijnana, he has got Vijnana Nama, etc. Vijnanatma, etc. The real Mayavi is not Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya or anything like that. Akarta, Bhokta, real Mayavi. And what is he doing there? Paramartha Maya sa eva bhumishto Maya channaha. Adushyamana eva sthidaha. So that Mayavi is actually standing right on earth, but is covered, concealed by Maya. That's why we think he is Karta, Bhokta, etc. So, when you don't see Maya, then you see Mayavi. When you don't see Mayavi, then only you see Maya. That's why Paramartha Chintaganam Susto Na Adaraha, which I already stated earlier. Okay, this much only. The only point to keep in mind is this. Sutra Tadarudhabhyam Anyaha Paramartha Mayavi. Sa eva bhumishto Maya channaha adrushyamanaka eva sthidaha. So this only. So nothing more than that. So the point is this. The same idea Bhashyakara repeats here. So Brahma Sutra Bhashya was written after the Deshopanishad Bhashya. So little bit of that Mandukya Bhashya portion is compressed and given here for the same purpose in a different context. That's why Seva Mayavi Paramartharupaka Bhumishthaga Anyaka Yathava Ghadakashat Ubadi Parichinnat Anubadi Parichinna Akashaka Anyaka. So space or Akasha, one is limited. It is Ghadakasha, the Akasha space which is limited within the pot, Ghadakasha. So that is Ubadi Parichinna. It is limited by Ubadi. Ubadi here means the Ghada, Nama, Rupa. The space that we normally associate with a Ghada will be only as big as Ghada itself. So it is limited by Ghada, its shape and size. But actually, it is not distinct from the real Akasha. But then it appears to be distinct. That's it. Yathava Ghadakashat Ubadi Parichinna Anubadi Parichinna Akasha Anyaka. Actually, we think that way. We may wrongly imagine that way. For example, we may think that that the Ghadakasha is different from Mahakasha, but actually it is not. It is the same. It appears to be different, but it's actually not different, it's the same. Idrisham he means, it implies it is not real. Actually, the distinction between Ghadakasha and Mahakasha is not real in the absolute sense. It appears to be real only in the relative sense. When you wrongly assume that the space within the Ghata, which is limited by the dimension of the Ghata. It's a big Ghata, it's a big Ghadakasha. It's small one, small Ghadakasha. So Upadi Parichinna. So we think this is true. But actually it is not distinct. Idrisham here means, in fact, it's not correct in the absolute sense. Idrisham cha Vijnana Paramatma Vedam Asitya Naidro Nupaptehi Veda Vipadesha cha Idityuktam. Similarly, the point is this: in this Mahakasha, which is Abharichinna, which is not limited by any Ubadhi, it appears to be different from the Ghadakasha. Similarly, we may think that Jivatma is different from Paramatma. The same kind of distinction. That distinction is unreal in the absolute sense. In that sense only, this particular sutra is mentioned here, Veda Vipadeshacha Naidara Anubhavatehi, etc. Here, remember, slowly it becomes Advaita. Slowly you find Vrittikara merges with Advaita view. That's what you find here, okay? It's all because the distinction is experienced, because the spiritual seeker does not realize that his own Swarupa. He recognizes his own Swarupa to be something else by imposing Anatma in Atmavastu. That's the idea. Already mentioned earlier. Now next sutra. Kamacha na anuvana peksha. So this actually is a reference to one of the sutras in the Kshatyadhikaranam. Anandamaya adhikari cha so kameda bhushyam prajayeya. You already read and discussed earlier. Idi kama idrutva nirdeshat na anumanagamapi sankhya parikalpidam achetanam pradhanam anandamayattvena karanattvena va apekshitavyam. So in this particular prakarana on Anandamaya, there is a statement, so kameda. he did sankalpa, he decided, let me become many, Bhashyam Prajaya, etc. So here, one should keep in mind, there is a similarity between this one and also, Ikshade Na Shabdam in this particular previous adhyarana, fifth adhyarana, so already mentioned here. The same thing, Ikshitruttvam in Ikshadya adhikaranam and Kametruttvam in this particular sutra. Both are similar in some ways. One may use Anumana Prakriya and then one may assume that it is Sankhya Parikalpidam Achetanam Pradhanam. Anandamaya is Pradhanam. One may assume that way. There is a possibility, but it cannot be accepted. It is not Pradhanam. So, we already refuted this argument. So, Sankhya, Parikalpidam, Achetanam, Pradhanam, Anandamayattvena, Karanattvena, Va Apekshitavyam, Ikshatehi Na Shabdam, Iti Nirakrutam is already refuted in the earlier sutra, in the previous adhyarana. Iti Nirakrutam, Ikshatehi Na Shabdam, Iti Nirakrutam, Pradhanam, Purva Sutra Udakrutam, Kamayadutta Sudhi Masitya. What is Kamayadutta Sudhi? So Kamayadutta, that is Kamayadutta Sudhi. Ikshatrutvam in the previous adhyarana, Kamayaduttam is in this particular adhyarana. Both are Hedu. In effect, they are the same. That means, in view of the Gati Samanyat, or you may call Tattvasamanyat, one may that way, Kamayadutta Sudhi Asitya Prasangat Punan Nirakriyade Gati Samanya Prapanchanaya. Just because all Vedanta Vakyas converge in the same direction. And if you understand the true essence of these converging Vedanta Vakyas, then it becomes very clear that Pradhanam, Achetanam cannot be Anandamaya. That is it's a very, very brief Bhashya. There is nothing very specifically important about it. The only point you have to keep in mind is So Kameda, Bhashyam Prajaya, etc. Because of this sutra, one may argue that it is Sankhya Parikalpidam, Jadam, Achetanam, that is Anandamaya, and Prapanchakarana, etc. No, it cannot be. We already refuted this argument in the fifth adhyarana, where, that is Saikshata, Ikshitruttvam, that's Hedu in that adhyarana. Here Kamayaduttam is Hedu here, Kamayaduttam, so Kamayada, etc. So, through Anumana, we cannot ever argue that Anandamaya is Pradhanam, Achetanam. We cannot see, it's already clear. Now coming to the most important part of this particular adhyarana, that is Asmin Nasyat Chatadyogam Shasti. That is an important point, remember. I already mentioned here. I mentioned earlier, Ratna Prabhakara says, Bodhayana Vritti ends here. So, in Govindananda Siddhata Prabha, Vrittikara Madam Dushayati. That's how we understand that Vrittikara Madam was summarized and referred to and expounded up to this particular point. And Bhashyara begins now. Then Ratna Prabhakara says, Vrittikara Madam Dushayati. Iha Paravyakhayam Vigararthage Mayadi Buddhiste Sati Akasmat Karanam Vina Ega Pragaranasthasya Mayadaha Puram Vigararthagattvam Ande Prajudyarthagattvam Idi Ardhajaritiyam Katham Iva Kena Pragarena Drishtandena Asriyade iti idam vaktavyam. So that is the Ratna Prabhakara's rejoinder to make clear the actual Advaitin view. I already mentioned earlier, according to Vrittikara, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya. In all these statements, Mayat Pratyaya should be interpreted in Vigarartha. All these are modifications of Ananda. Vrittikara madam dushayadi. So this from here on. Iha paravyakhayam Vigararthage Mayadi Buddhiste sadi. Akasmat karanam vina. Ega praganastasya Mayadaha Purvam Vigararthagatum ande Prajuryarthagatum. So the same Mayat Pratyaya was interpreted, there is scope for that, but Vigararthatum was taken up in while interpreting all the four koshas. Only in Anandamaya kosha, Akasmat Karanam Vina, without any specific reason, all of a sudden, Eka Pragaranasthasya Mayada Purvam Vigararthatum ande Prajuryarthatum iti Ardha Jaratiyam Katham. So it's Ardha means, I mentioned earlier, Ardha Jarati Nyayaha. That is, means the same person, same person, either man or woman, whoever may be. One part may be 95-year-old, the other part much younger. Such a person will not be a very wonderful spectacle to see. So actually, here Vardhamana says in this, so kind of semi-senile woman, that's what mentioned here. Yatha stri na taruni stradasnanatva krishnakeshatva na jariti vaktum sakyade tadva siddha siddhum prayojanam etc. This also. Iti vigararthe mayat pravahe sya etc. So there are many other important works in which this Ardha Jarati Nyaya is invoked. So Ratna Prabhakara says that, Govindananda says, iti Ardha Jaratiyam Katham Iva Kena Pragarena Drishtandena Asedi iti idam vaktavi. You have to explain why suddenly, all of a sudden, Agasmat, all of a sudden, from Vigarartha interpretation of Maya Pratyaya, you shift to Prajuryartha. So that should be explained. Bhashyakara will continue next class onwards. Okay. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.